of their carry-out orders, and they had to calculate the tip. And this is a great example of real-world application for our students. And one of the bonuses of this is that Buster, the school therapy dog, often participates in many of the lessons, and so the kids get to see it. So I've actually asked Ms. Chiano as well as Mrs. McNaughton to come. They are fully online teachers, and I know there's a lot of questions about what does an online classroom look like. And so they're actually going to be joining us at our next board meeting to do a presentation and demonstration of what they do and what that looks like in an online class. So there are a lot of really neat and interesting things and ideas as teachers are thinking outside the box.
Thanks for sharing that, Ben. Appreciate it, and congratulations to Ms. Chiano and her class. It's a great way to learn. Mm-hmm. And I do hope that they take it to heart to support our local businesses as they get takeout. Yeah. Anything else?
Not at this time.
Okay, thanks. All right, we now have an opportunity for public comment for items that are specific to our agenda. Do we have anybody, Travis?
Yep, we got Michael's on the line right now. So Michael, I'm gonna go ahead and unmute you or ask you to unmute.
Michael, if you would state your name and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
We can now. Could you, okay. Were you able to hear me? We need to know your name. And if you
Yep,
can
I heard that.
Comments. Thank you, Michael.
My name is Michael Evsenik. I live here in Swartz Creek. I work at Covenant Healthcare in Saginaw as a hospital planner. I just wanted to comment about reopening face-to-face. I believe that's on the agenda tonight, so I just wanted to talk about that for just a minute. As a working family, we've seen how hard it is to do asynchronous school for my kindergartner and third grader. We are relatively privileged as my wife works at Elm, so she's at home right now helping my kids do schoolwork every day. Lots of the people I see on social media are struggling right now. I think the school system and board can research alternatives to help with that, whether it be purchasing content, more interaction virtually, etc. I think the teachers are doing an amazing job. I think maybe the more tools would help them and the students. All that said, with the uncontrolled spread of COVID-19 right now in Michigan, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry. With the uncontrolled spread of COVID-19 right now in Michigan, I believe the board has to continue with virtual school for face-to-face students until the end of winter break to get through the holidays. We have done, our students, staff, administration has done a great job limiting the spread in our schools. However, we have had some infections, and I also think one thing to remember is if our kids go back face to face, people may take that as a signal to go back to normal and have large gatherings during the holidays. And I think if we can stop things like that, it'll definitely help us out in Genesee County and in Michigan in general. We do have the option of keeping our kids home. However, having children in school, going about your life as normal helps increase the spread overall. So it's not just about, you know, keeping my kids safe by keeping them home. That was all I had to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. We appreciate it very much. Is there anyone else, Travis?
I do got one more. Mary just texted me. She hasn't joined in yet, so I don't know if you want to wait till the next one or give her a minute, but I just sent her the link. Mary Rock.
Why don't we wait about 30 more seconds?
Okay.
And we can always allow them to comment at the end.
Yeah, I told her there was two, as she wanted to wait to the second one too.
Okay. So why don't we move on and we'll make sure that they get in on the end.
Okay.
Okay. All right, next on our agenda, we have a consent agenda. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Mike,
Support.
Brian,
Yes.
any comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. Joanne, could you do roll call, please?
I can. Alicia,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes. Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
7 yeses.
Thank you. Motion passes. We have a consent agenda. Back to Ben for our superintendent report. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a lot of activity obviously happening, and you may not think that because students are learning virtually right now in this brief pause. But there's a lot of planning and deliberation going on, kind of thinking about how we're going to approach the second semester and what we've learned from the first semester. One of our challenges, as was referenced by our Mr. Obstanick, is the online platforms that we're using. I think that there are other resources that could be accessed that are out there, and so Travis and I have
You're frozen, Ben. Ben, can you hear us? I think we've lost Ben temporarily.
I think we lost him. I just texted him. See if he needs
It's okay. So do we still have Brendan with us? Why don't we move on while we're waiting for Ben to rejoin us, and you can give us your student representative report, please.
Awesome. So since many school-related activities have been put on hold due to the government-mandated shutdown, students at this time are primarily concerned with readjusting to an online school format and are doing very well. Student opinion regarding the switch seems to be split. Some students enjoy online learning. They enjoy the asynchronous style, whereas other kids look forward to the potential of going back to school. And just as much as people are split on that, people have been split on the modes of learning via asynchronous or synchronous learning as well. Naturally, as a result of the mass uncertainty, not only in our community and state, but in our country, levels of motivation among students and teachers have decreased somewhat, but it has not caused a hindrance in the pursuit of knowledge. So I think that is something that we can be proud of in our students. In all, I think the students are doing very well in adjusting to online learning. And a huge thank you to the board and to all Swartz Creek teachers for being extremely diligent, supportive, and pragmatic during these trying times. Your hard work and extra hours are very much so appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you, Brendan.
Thank you.
It's great hearing a student's perspective always, and I'm glad to hear you giving gratitude to the teachers and the staff. Thank you.
I
Okay.
apologize that
That's okay.
I had a little bit of a glitch there, so I was able to catch most of Brendan's report, so that was good. To just back up and let everybody know that we are researching some additional platforms, not necessarily wholesale platforms, but we're researching additional technology tools that can be accessed by teachers to enhance some of the online learning that's going on. We already have a lot of our teachers using different ones, and so we're looking at what can we support that makes sense for a lot of engagement activities that can be done in an online format. I think one of the other things that we're trying to strike a balance, and we've heard a lot of feedback, and it's kind of interesting. We have, parents who will tell us, I really love the fact that there's some asynchronous time built into the schedule, because I'm a working parent, and it's difficult for me to sit there with my child all day long, trying to get them to, understand the lessons and access the content, particularly for elementary parents. But then we also hear from parents, I wish that we had a solid structure where we sat, like the kids had a schedule, just like at school. They sat in their computers from, 8 o'clock in the morning till 3 at night. And we've been very intentional about trying to strike a balance. We don't think there's any research that supports a child sitting in front of a screen for 7 to 8 hours a day. There's a lesson design concept known as the gradual release of responsibility, where there is about a 15 to 20 minute mini lesson that exists where the teacher's imparting some direct instruction, and then the students go into some practice with each other and then practice independently. There's not a need for students to be sitting in front of the computer doing independent practice. They can do that on their own. So that's why our schedule that we've released most recently has a number of contacts with students throughout the week, multiple contacts, but there's more of a structured schedule, but it's not all day, every day. And so we hear from parents that, we'd like it to be all day, every day, just like they were in school. And we also hear from parents that they appreciate the flexibility. And of course, we hear from some that say they really like the balance that we struck. So it's constantly trying to analyze that, talk with our teaching staff, find out what's working, find out where we need to, either increase more synchronous learning or look at different options for flexibility and things like that. So that is an ongoing conversation, and one that we will continue to engage. We do have our modality survey, which is going out here this next week, at the end of this week, I should say. And the purpose, again, for that is looking at the second semester and what are parents looking for. We do have some tentative plans to be looking at more asynchronous type, looking at the online learner and saying, are you looking for more of an asynchronous type of environment where you're kind of learning at your own pace? And then there's a life coach or somebody to check in with you. And then, those that are looking for more of that synchronous, more structured type of a schedule. And so we're going to be including some of those questions on the survey that goes out on Friday. And that is certainly something that's top of mind at this point. One of the other things that we're pretty excited about that we're going to be launching here shortly, we're going to be announcing over the next few weeks that we're going to have a couple support sessions in the evenings on Monday and Thursday evenings for parent support on online learning. And so we oftentimes will hear from teachers that a lot of the parents just have questions on how to navigate the site or how to access resources. And a lot of the teachers do provide that directly. Some of the parents have more need for access, and I'm not sure how to reset my child's password, or I'm not sure how to log into the different application accounts. And so we're going to be launching a couple parent support sessions on Monday and Thursday nights coming up, which will hopefully provide another layer of service for our families that are looking for some help and support. And those will be manned by teachers. So we're looking forward to launching that as well. We also, are just constantly monitoring. Currently, we're in a pause for our athletic programs and many of our extracurriculars. And so, the governor spoke yesterday. She'll be coming on again next week. And we just have no knowledge of where that's going to end up. But obviously, I'll share more information later on this meeting as we talk about, the current data in the district and things like that. But overall, it's busy. I think there's a lot of flurry of activity as we're preparing for wrapping things up as we get close to the holiday season. But at the same time, everybody's just kind of trying to manage the, switching back and forth from face to face and online, and how to manage that the best we can. So definitely very thankful for our students and their energy and effort, as well as our staff who have been very, very diligent during this time. So we have a very good district and a lot of really great things to be thankful for coming on the heels of Thanksgiving. I know I'm certainly thankful to have such a supportive staff and community. And I think many people echo those sentiments. So it's a great place to be. We're always trying to be better and get better and improve. And it doesn't matter where we're at. That's always our message. But we're very thankful for what we've accomplished to this point. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Any questions for Ben? Okay, thanks, Ben. All right, next we have our board subcommittee reports. Brian, do you want to go first?
Yeah, Travis, can you share my policy minutes on the computer? Is that possible?
I do not have them.
Oh,
I can if you tell me where they're at.
they're on the with the agenda on the docs for the school board
documents.
I can do that. Hang on just one second. Okay.
Okay, great, thanks. If everybody can see the notes there. The policy committee met on Monday the 30th. And we had, you can see who was in attendance there. Call to order. We discussed, again, we've been going over the same package in Neola updates now for some time. So we reviewed and continued discussion on the MASB policy update, volume 34, number 2. And we're going to have the second board action reading scheduled for tonight at this meeting. And then we also had discussion about, we discussed and reviewed the merits and benefits of transitioning from MASB Neola Policy Update Service to the Truan Policy Update Service. Truan is our current legal service. We would be, if this will be, this is just kind of opening up this discussion. It would also align, if we did end up going with Truan Policy Update Service, it would align with Truan Legal Services. So the discussion was open to begin considering efficient, timely, and responsive policy update service, the process that may better serve the needs of the Swartz Creek School Board and the school community. And again, we're going to, this is going to be a continuing discussion, and eventually we will probably bring it to the board for consideration. We had no public comment, and we were adjourned at 08:21 hours Monday. Thanks, Ben.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Brian. Are there any questions for Brian? Okay. All right. Our Academic Achievement Committee also met on Monday morning. We got an update from Rod and Ben about the structure of virtual learning, and they gave us a pretty comprehensive overview of the structure and schedule by modality at the elementary, middle school, and high school levels. And they also shared calendars, so we'd have a concept of what it looks like in a week, and the ratio of synchronous and asynchronous learning. I thought it was very helpful to see. And then they also talked about the 20-minute high school and middle school whole class meetings, which Ben referenced in his report, of the 20 minutes to make an impact in the gradual release of responsibility. So that was really helpful for the group. There was also a discussion about student and parent engagement, and some well checks that have been going on by the social workers and our liaison officer to make sure that students are okay, their families are okay, that they're engaged, and if they need any help. Additionally, Ben just shared that there's a help desk a couple nights a week that will be implemented to help parents with technology and answer questions. And then Rod also talked about the virtual teacher labs, which teacher labs was a concept that we talked about, I think, last year, but now they can actually, teachers could come in and out of classroom settings virtually and learn from the teachers that are in front of the classroom, but also talk about best practices, opportunities, that kind of thing. So there's a silver lining. in the virtual learning environment, and that people will be able to more widely participate. And there was no public comment, and that was it. Any questions? Okay, Mike, you want to talk about finance?
Yes. Finance Committee also met by Zoom on Monday at 9:12 a.m. Due to this being the second meeting of the month, there was no cash flow report or check register review. We discussed the high school bond bids, which will be going out on December 7th, opened on the 18th, and brought to the board tentatively on January 13th. We spoke about the middle school remodeling bids, the elementary window blinds, and the pool bids, which will be discussed tonight also and voted on. There was discussion and review of a legal opinion letter from the Troon law firm regarding the district line of credit. This would be an alternative to state aid borrowing each year. Chris Gray is continuing to research this issue. Chris also addressed the Michigan Department of Education resource management audit findings for food service, the Michigan Department of Education Title I compliance review, consolidated application amendment, and the CARES Act update. Chris is continuing to work on the budget amendment, which is anticipated to be brought to the board also in January. There were no public comments, and the next meeting is January 11th, 2021. We adjourned at 10:07. This being the last meeting of the fiscal year, the Finance Committee extends a huge thank you to Chris Gray for all the hard work and long hours she spends on the bond project bids, the budget, and the amendments, the many requests from the board for finance information, on top of all the other myriad financial matters that she and her staff keep on top of. Thank you, Chris. Any questions?
Thank you, Mike.
Welcome.
And I think we all echo that thanks to Chris Gray. She's just been amazing, and I don't know how she stretches herself so thin. So thank you. Okay, I think finally building and site. Do we have Chuck?
Jessica.
Yeah, I think Jessica's going to do it for me, Carrie.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks,
she was
Jessica.
nice to volunteer.
I forgot how my computer worked, and then I could unmute myself. Chuck, I took the notes, I sent them off, and let me see. Oh, here. Bear with me because I'm looking at my handwritten notes, not the typewritten ones. So the Building and Site Committee met at 403, and the first item that we talked about was the sinking fund plans for the cage. We had discussed previously, possibly 21 is a final payment in December. RC had discussed it, and there's really no great financial benefit to the district to pay it off early now, because most interest is paid on the front end of a loan rather than at the tail end. And because the district has other preventative maintenance projects that are more pressing to get to, it seems more it's a better idea for us to spend that money on the preventative maintenance than it is to pay off the cage. That's the first one. Second one was the pool and aquatics, and that is that we did have 8 companies come and do a walkthrough for the change to the drainage and the repair for the pool, and we did receive 1 bid, and that was from Advanced Pool Service for the changing from the single drain to the 2 drains on the side of the pool. And I think what do I want? I didn't put that in correctly, that it's going into the sump pump. I read through the bid earlier, and I think I phrased that incorrectly on these notes. But anyway, the point is that For that repair, it was going to be $13,750. They did include one alternate for $8,200 for a modulation valve that they suggested to be replaced while that work is being done. However, that part is obsolete. So in order to have it repaired, it would have to be rebuilt, and or they're not expecting it to be an easy find, and it would delay having the repair done. And so their second suggestion was to have a hydrostatic type valve put in its place, and that would be for $15,500. The current valve that we have is original, so nobody's quite certain what the life expectancy is for it. So it makes more sense for them to replace it now. So the total for the repairs would be $29,250. That could be, we have the general funds dollars to do this work. I know that it's on our agenda to discuss further. Ben, do you want to scroll down a little bit? For the window treatment, this is part of the bond project. We sent out a request. We had 4 bids that were opened on the 24th. American Interiors was the low bidder with $36,530. RC had done a post-bid interview on the day that we met. Everything looked good. We may need to do something different in the makerspace areas for the elementaries, because the doors there have the push space bar in the center. And so we're discussing that we may do some type of 3M window covering for those doors. And installation can occur while we are closed over the holidays. And I should note that as well, back up for the pool repair, that can be done. They expect that they can have that repair done by the end of December as well. Next, a preventative maintenance update. We received a comprehensive report emailed to us that Bureau Veritas did. That's part of the School Dude program, and a comprehensive review and assessment of all of our buildings, the facilities, and the equipment within them. RC is reviewing pages 8 to 18 in that, identifying the low, medium, and high priority projects, and that will be a running document. And the immediate needs before the end of this fiscal year are the roof on the Little Dragons Learning Center. We just had a boiler go out at Moorish. The middle and the high school roofs need some repairs, and those are repairs that will not be covered and are not part of the bond, the scope of work for the bond. We have about a dozen exhaust fans at multiple buildings that need to be replaced, and the PAC has externally on the south elevation of the second floor lobby, the original flashing was not sealed properly, so there's going to be 3 courses of brick that need to be removed. That's about 100 feet long for that to be a proper repair. The immediate needs, they're anticipated between $50,000 and $85,000 for those repair. The medium needs priorities right now that have been identified is roughly around $200,000 in repair, and the low priority is about $180,000 of repair. And then finally, during the shutdown, and the various departments are working on, the maintenance department's working on just immediate needs in the buildings, whether it's clogged toilets, faucets, leaks, and whatnot. The custodial staff's doing daily sanitizing, and they're signaling what needs to be sanitized. If somebody's been in a room, then they'll leave the door open. If the door is closed, it's a clean, sanitized room. As well, they're doing some deep cleaning and waxing the floors. Bus drivers are doing some updating of maps, seating charts. They're doing some safe school trainings, some trainings to help work with riders and de-escalation. They're doing some deep sanitizing as well, and additionally helping with food distribution. We've got 1 bus mechanic coming in daily, and we have 1 person from the office staff coming in each day. There were no public comments, and we adjourned at 4:54. Any questions? Did I miss anything?
Thank you, Jessica. It was a great report.
Thank you, Jessica. Thanks, Jessica, for helping me out.
You are very welcome.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, we have a discussion about on the Neola policies that were mentioned in Brian's report. You're on mute, Ben.
Thank you. Today is officially going to be our second read of the policy package 34-2. But I would like to take just a moment. I spoke at the policy committee meeting with our team, and we had a discussion about Troon policies. And so I'll just kind of start the conversation by saying Troon is our, they represent about 85% of our legal work, and they're the largest educational law firm in Michigan, providing the vast majority of legal counsel to school districts in the state of Michigan. They're housed in Lansing is where they're located. They have recently, over the past couple years, started into a policy service. And I talked with a couple of their partners, the two senior partners at the firm I've worked with in the past, and I had conversations with both of them. And they basically said, you know, a lot of school districts have used Neola, and we find that many times we're defending Neola policies in court, and it just creates more challenges for us, because a lot of times the Neola policies are not specific to Michigan law. And so Neola being a national organization, nothing that they have is, I'm not saying that it's wrong, but certainly Troon provides an option that would be very closely aligned to the counsel that would be defending us in a court case. And quite frankly, I think their policies are a little easier to read. So I wanted to go through and show you just a couple examples of how their policies feel and read. Before I do that, to give you an idea of why I'm bringing this up at this point, it's because we're going through this review. I understand that we have these regular updates, but one of the things that's been a challenge with Neola is a lot of times we'll approve policies at the board level, and it takes quite a while to get those policies updated onto our board doc site. And so the level of customer service and care from Troon has always been exceptional. And so I think, you know, we're probably going to get a little bit more of a customized service. Obviously, you as the board, you set policy, and so you can take the recommendations from Troon, or, you know, and you will see similar quarterly updates and things like that, or, you know, obviously have the ability and flexibility to change those policies. But them being our legal counsel makes a lot of sense that they would also be our policy provider. I'll speak to just a couple things, and then I'll turn it over for discussion. We do have a number of examples that I'm going to pull up here in just a moment, if I can get the screen share to work properly. So this is a draft of what their table of contents look like. So very similar to the you know, our current policy manual. They have a section on bylaws. They have a section on mission statement and definitions. Obviously, they have a section on operations, finance, and property. They have sections on district employment. They have sections on staff and students, curriculum, and academic matters. And then if you get into the 6,000s, if you get it to the end of the 5,000, you're going to have some of these miscellaneous areas. So their policies, they look and are grouped similarly to the way Neola's are, a little bit different. I'll show you a feel of how a policy might look that is real specific. I'll turn to maybe the conflict of interest section here, if I can just pull this up. So this is an example of one of their policies as it's written. I feel that their policies are very straightforward. They're very easy to read. As you look at their policies, of course, they're always documenting the legal authority for which that policy was derived. And of course, these things can be adjusted to suit the individual needs of our local context. But this type of policy is kind of giving you an example of what that looks like. And then lastly, to touch just as another bit of an example, Forest Hills Public Schools is a school district out on the west side of the state. They're one of a growing number of school districts that are moving over to Troon for their policy provider. And so this is Forest Hills Schools Board of Education policy area. And they use a program called Board Book. It's obviously just a different application than Board Docs, but they have all of their policies listed here. When you click on the actual policies themselves, it's opened up. So for example, in finance and borrowing, you open up and you can turn right to that policy. So finance and borrowing, you're going to be here looking at the use of credit cards and things like that. So they have all of these policies in place. And if you go to the Forest Hills Public Schools website, you can certainly find all of that information as an example of a fully implemented set of Troon policies. And of course, there are going to be some nuanced differences, as we would obviously have some of our policies that we would want to retain. So two final things, and then I'd like to, just open it up for your input on this. Number one of the questions came up about what is the actual cost. There is about a $7,000 cost for implementation. And in subsequent years, there is about a $2,500 a year fee that is paid for the service. And that's kind of the update service and so on and so forth. I'm going to come back to the document. So I want to be clear. The $7,000 is for the policy manual, and another $4,000 for the administrative guidelines and forms. So it's about $11,000 investment. Currently, we pay about $3,000 every year for an annual update for Neola. So obviously, we had those upfront costs initially with Neola. So Troon policies actually overall end up becoming cheaper because it's going to be about $500 a year less than what our Neola policies were after the original implementation is complete. So from a cost perspective, obviously there's an implementation cost, but it actually ends up being more cost effective over the course of time because it's cheaper than the Neola updates. Furthermore, on an implementation plan, if we were to go this direction, it would require several additional board meetings for the policy committee. So the policy team, and again, those are always committee of the whole, so they're posted meetings that any board member can attend. But a Troon attorney would actually take our policy team through the entire policy manual. So it'd be a comprehensive review. The policy committee would make recommendations, and then this board as a whole board would have to vote to adopt the set of Troon policies to replace ours. That's a process that's probably going to take between 4 to 5 meetings with our policy team and the Troon attorney. This is something that they do, and they're happy to provide that service as a part of the implementation. So the question really for you all is that worth the work to go in and do that? I know we've talked for a while about needing to do a comprehensive review of the policies. So obviously we discussed this at the policy committee, but I think it would be appropriate for the whole board to weigh in on it so that we could get some guidance. And if I need to get the ball rolling on this, I can start setting those meetings up.
Does anybody have questions for Ben? Go ahead, Leisha.
Is there an interactive component on that? I don't know what else to call it besides the board docs. In their program where we can edit from the policy committee and comment interactively in there as well?
So I think let me share my screen again, and I'll and it may or may not answer your question. So this is the public site, anybody can go here. This is Forest Hill Public Schools.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you go to their board book, okay, which is just the public side of this, and you click on any of these policies, when you click on them, they open in this window and you can review them all. In board book, there's going to be editing rights for the district themselves. So the district would have the ability to go in here and edit these as they chose to do so. But the public site obviously would not be editable because they would have to be approved by the board before they were edited. But there is more flexibility in talking with some of the superintendents that have gone this direction. There is more flexibility for the district being able to update some of those. I think we talked previously about the student board representative policy. Took a very long time to get into board docs. And so that would have been something we could have implemented a lot quicker if we were able to edit that. So it is my understanding that it is much more user-friendly from that perspective.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Alicia. Brian, I think you had a question? Or someone, I heard a voice.
Thoughts. Can you hear me? Okay. I think the thought of effectiveness, efficiency, and user-friendly, I think we're going to find that with Truon. We've always had excellent response from Truon. They've been our legal counsel for several years now. But I think having a policy service closer, they're out of Lansing, and they focus on the state of Michigan, that they're not national. I think that's going to be a benefit. So timeliness, local versus national clientele. They're focused in Michigan. And then Truon being our legal counsel, it aligns with our known legal issues and questions in counsel. It'll be a personalized service. Maybe it's too much, but I don't think so. I think it's going to be a good thing having our legal counsel aligned with our policymaking body. And I think it's going to be good also that I think we're ready for a comprehensive review of all of our policies. And this will be a good opportunity to do that. It's my thought.
Thanks, Brian. Any questions for Brian or any other comments? Go ahead, Mike.
I got a comment. For the board members that have a hard time sleeping, you may want to Google Throne Policy Service, and there you will find 6 pages, which includes their order form, their prices, and their terms and conditions, which is a little more in depth than Ben has time to explain. But it might help you understand how this works. I found it very interesting. Since we started talking about it on Monday, I think it's a great idea. I think the committee should look into it, and I think we should give it some real consideration.
Thanks, Mike. Anyone else? Go ahead, Leisha.
Just an additional comment or a question too. So since we're on the second read of these policies, Ben, does it make more sense efficiently for us to determine whether we move forward with Neola or Truon? Because if we're going to go with a different company, I mean, essentially, should we even be wasting our time reviewing these documents, or do it with that comprehensive review if we end up taking on the new organization?
That's exactly right. And that's precisely why I'm bringing it up tonight, because instead of having additional readings of these policies, now would be the time for us to start the ball rolling. And so if tonight, again, it's not the board is going to vote on these policies before we do anything to go away from Neola. So the board would be very actively involved, as policy is one of your primary responsibilities. So the policy committee would be a policy committee of the whole. We would have anyone and everyone that wanted to come. Obviously, the policy committee members would be primarily involved there. And so we would just be continuing to keep the board apprised of progress, but this board would have full access to obviously reviewing every single policy before it would be implemented. So that would be when we would vote as a board. But I would need to actually get the ball rolling so that Troon can start to schedule attorneys to meet with our team and, get that process started. Because as I said, it is going to be, 4 to 6 meetings of going through these policies alongside the attorney. There's going to be questions. There's going to be options to select and things like that. So it makes more sense to invest our energy in those new policies if we're going to go that direction versus continuing on with the Neola update. Because we're in compliance with our other policies currently, those will remain until the board decides to vote to change to the new policy package.
Thank you. And I will echo what Brian and Mike have both said. I think it does make sense to align with those that are essential. I mean, if the people that are writing our policies are going to be the ones defending our policies, it makes sense to align those together for one. But I can say the more and more you look through some of our policies, we definitely need a comprehensive review and update. So I think it's timely to be able to do both of that, to realign as well as review. We've had to, just for efficiency purposes, timing, and the vast amount of policies that we have in place, we have to review those that are most pressing. So there's a lot of them that are still in there. They're not necessarily wrong, they're just old and we really need to review. And anyway, I fully support making that decision as soon as we can. That's all I have.
Thanks, Alicia. Tony or Chuck, any comments?
My only comment is what's the cost again? And is it more than Neola?
So the original upfront cost is going to be about $11,000, and that would be for the implementation fee, which is similar to what Neola's would be when we initially did the implementation there. But yearly cost is $2,500 because we're a retainer client of them, so it's only $2,500 because we're already clients of theirs, versus Neola, which is over $3,000 is what we pay every year to Neola.
So the 11,000 includes these 6 or 7 meetings that the policy committee needs to meet with them to make sure our stuff is changed the way we want it and go from there. What was the policy committee's recommendation, Ben? Was there a recommendation or did they just, did they feel it was all good?
Well, Brian, Mike, and Alicia are all on the policy committee, and so is Jessica. And I think there was pretty universal support for it. I mean, obviously they can speak to that, but I just wanted to make sure there were no major objections, because once I get the ball rolling and get meetings set up, obviously we'll be moving forward. And it is a service. It's not, in the grand scheme of things, a lot of money, but it is a substantial change that will require some board input and obviously review as we go through all of these policies.
Well, we heard from 3 of the board members. What's Jessica feel about it? What do you feel, Jessica, about it?
It makes sense to me. Quite honestly, a little bit, I can go either way. It's not something I'm super duper excited about on one hand. Given at this moment, it does make a lot of sense. I'll put it this way. I was hoping that it would not take 22 years to recoup the cost, but it's really, in the grand scheme of things, I'm certain if we got together with Neola and asked them to revamp our policies, even with Neola, they'd charge us a chunk of change to do that. So to me, it makes sense. And the bigger point, as far as Troon representing us and being the ones that write our policies, that makes sense. I think the last thing I will say, and what I haven't done since Monday, is to reach out to Forest Hills or anybody else to see, if they would do it all over again, or if you had any suggestions for us or things to think about that maybe they hadn't before they made the decision. That's it.
Sounds good. Sounds like the committee. I would go with the committee's lead, I suppose, without, any question about it. Ben, how many school districts do you think are going to flip over? Is this a trend with the school districts that have them as their attorneys currently?
Yeah, I would say the vast majority of school districts in the state utilize Troon in some form or fashion. There's about 3 pretty large law firms. Troon is the largest for educational law. They started this 2 years ago, and I talked with the partner that did it, and there were some early adopters, and then there have been a steady flow of people moving in this directions, primarily because, as I said, they're the ones that are making the policies, are the ones defending them, and they're actually a little easier to read. I think they're a little bit more straightforward and not, quite as, there's not as many whereases and all of those other types of words in the policies, which makes it a little bit easier for somebody to access if they're trying to figure out what the policy actually says.
Okay, great. Thanks for the comments. Thanks.
Go ahead, Tony.
I would go with what the subcommittee said. I agree with that.
And Chuck, just so I was also at the committee, and I agree that it's a much more efficient, a much more lean process development. I do have a question for you, Ben. If we were to customize any of the policies and Troon then has to review them to make sure we're in compliance with the law, is there an additional charge from the legal side for doing that?
Only after the initial implementation. So for example, let's say there's an update that comes a year from now and the recommendation from Troon is X, and you're saying, well, we'd like to add in a couple additional lines here. There could be, if we ask them for a legal opinion, meaning they actually have their legal team go in and review that, there could be some additional fees in those cases. But minor edits and tweaks to the policies are not things that typically get any additional charges for. So they're gonna be very similar to what Neola is in that.
So we need to invest in the updates and really be thoughtful in any kind of changes through the implementation then. Okay, go ahead, Alicia.
I was just going to comment as well. We would still have that fee if we were to ask them to review a customization that we wanted off of the Neola one as well. Correct?
That's
so
correct.
It really wouldn't be, it's not an additional fee that we would have otherwise have incurred using the other system.
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Gary?
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
Can I expand on your question?
Sure, go ahead.
I'm going to read to the policy implementation meetings. The Throne policy manual is not ready for immediate adoption by your board until it is first reviewed and customized by your district. As part of the policy, service fees, Throne law firm will conduct regular policy information meetings via Zoom to review the policies and discuss options identified within the policies. The dates of those meetings will be emailed to their district.
Thanks for that, Mike. That's really helpful. Anyone else? I think we got everybody's feedback. So Ben, do you have enough to go forward then?
Yeah, so I appreciate.
Sorry, Jessica had a question. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was listening and then I searched a little on the Mike's suggestion on Troon policy, and it just made me think this does not include at all the online platform, correct? If I'm understanding this sheet, so we would need to subscribe, or I think I'm saying that correctly, to use Board Book. Do you know if that is included with or not?
I am not 100% sure on that. I don't believe that it's included. Board Book would be another additional fee. That's actually housed through and hosted through MASB. So that's something that we can get more information on. I do know that it's not a requirement to have it, but it might be a good efficiency. So I'll look into that as well. The main thing that I needed was just to kind of get a general sense from all of you, and now I can move forward and I will start looking to get meetings scheduled. So I'll be reaching out to you, and over the course of the next month or month and a half, we'll have some of these implementation meetings scheduled.
Ben, do we need a motion
Vote on it? Do we need to vote on it or board motion? I think Brian was going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
You certainly could. That's always up to you. The process that we're going through, quite frankly, isn't something that would require board action, because your board action is going to occur when you actually officially approve or vote on the policies. But you could make a motion for me to move forward with the scheduling, but that's certainly something I can do without a motion, because there are no policies that will be implemented or changed until you approve them, as a group. So it's up to you procedurally how you'd like to proceed.
If someone would like to make a motion, if it's appropriate, if you feel that it's appropriate, other than just letting Ben do what he just described, I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with them doing it, Carrie. It's just that, I mean, we're kind of switching a vendor, and it's been a long time vendor, correct? You've been on the committee for, yeah. So, I mean, it's up to you guys, but that's why I posed the question. I know that the money's not, exorbitant. It goes over our normal fees, but we've been with that vendor for a long time. So I guess maybe to stop any reaction towards Ben, it'd look better if it was board action. But at the end of the day, I neither way really matters to me, but it's up to you guys.
Yeah, I guess I want to just clarify. If I agree, Chuck, I think if we're making a motion, I think we need, or if we're evaluating whether we're actually going to make this change, I think we need to vote. Ben, if you're saying you just want to set up some meetings so we get more information, I don't necessarily think we have to vote on that if we're not officially making the change. But if we need to make that change now, then yeah, I think we need everybody's input and an official vote.
So the way that would work is if I get the meeting set up, it's with the intention that we're moving forward with implementation. I suppose there's a situation that could present itself where you get into it and you say, we don't really want these policies. You haven't made any motions to change any of your current Neola policies. So just to be clear, whatever motion you would say, you're not making a recommendation on any specific policies. What you're really doing is saying, so your motion, if you were going to make a motion, would just be to authorize me to begin the implementation process with Troon. That is probably something that would not necessarily, from a legal perspective, require a board motion, but I certainly understand and can see the value of doing that. So you can do it either way, but just to be clear, you're not voting on we're adopting Troon policies. You're not voting on that until you actually go through the review process and see the policies in front of you.
Okay, so it sounds like, I'll entertain a motion to authorize Ben to pursue this arrangement with Troon. And I would entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Mike, and then Brian, any
Yes.
comments or questions? Joanne, could you do, okay, I'm sorry, Alicia.
Sorry, do we need to add at all that we're going to table any review until we were reviewing with Troon? Or do we still need to evaluate the current Neola edits?
I mean, you can certainly add that. We will just not officially vote on the Neola updates at this time.
Brian, do you want to amend
Yes.
it to include that we are not going to take action on the policies this evening?
Correct.
Okay, Joanne, you have that. And are you okay with that? Mike, I'm sorry, you were the one who initiated it.
I'm fine.
Okay, great. So Joanne, could you do a roll call, please?
Sure. Jessica?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
And Alicia?
Yes.
7 yeses.
Thank you, Ben. I think you have our blessing to move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Next, we have two amazing administrators, leaders, principals here with us this evening. Ben, I don't know who's going to introduce them, you or Rod.
Sure. So we are very, very fortunate, as you said appropriately. We have some amazing educators with us tonight, and we have the benefit of hearing from one of our upper elementary principals, and actually she's the principal of our sole K-5 building in Mrs. Preer. And we also have an early elementary principal in Mrs. Lashbrook here with us tonight. And we had said to the board that we would come back in the late fall to do a review of our elementary model and how implementation has been going. I thought there would be no better way to do that than to have the building leaders from two different levels share their experiences. I will tell you that I've asked for this update, and you have to understand that in a normal year things would be much different. So COVID aside, how the fall has gone in our new elementary model configuration. So Mrs. Lashbrook and Mrs. Preer, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Travis, can you start the presentation, or is that something we have to do?
You have the ability to share your screen.
Oh. Katie, you want to share your screen?
Yep, you go ahead and intro, and I'll get that up.
Well, thank you, everybody. My name is Alice Lashbrook, as Ben had said. I'm the principal at Moorish Elementary. Before we get started here, I just wanted to say that this is technically my second year as an elementary principal. And so I've had 1 year, I guess, kind of up until March, of being a K-5 principal, and now 3 months of being a K-2 principal. And so while this transition has really presented some learning opportunities for all of us at the building, I find that as a new elementary administrator, it really is easier for me and my staff to focus on just a smaller age range. So if you think about like a K-5 model, we've got kids from age 5 all the way up to age 11. Now I only have ages 5 to ages 8. So I only have a 3-year developmental age span that I have to consider when I'm looking at programming, whether it's academic or social emotional. So that's a great benefit for our kids.
And I am Katie Preer. In my previous role, as some of you may know, I was the district MTSS coordinator. So in that role, our primary focus was to streamline all of our academic and behavior practices across all buildings. Currently, as the K-5 principal at Gaines Elementary and the 3-5 principal at Deke Elementary, it's been much easier to accomplish that very large task, as Alice spoke to. Having the K-2, 3-5 model absolutely has increased our ability to have that developmental age span and increase our focus and intention on our work. So we are very excited that we've been able to start that. So we're going to kind of talk about a few things that we've done. So we have some GLOWs. We have a specific social emotional learning program that better suits the needs of our population. It's called Second Step. And then we have continued to partner with Positivity Project, which is the P2. We have common grade level planning time across the K-2, 3-5 buildings, and that's accomplished through our specials being at the same time in the kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, fifth grades. And then we have collaboration across like buildings, so that's Cyrene and Moorish and Elms Road and Deke, and then the parent involvement. Alice, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, so I want to kind of touch upon the collaboration. What I find is a lot different this year than it was the previous year is that because we've really kind of connected ourselves together, whether it's Cyrene and Moorish or Cyrene and Elms Road, the four of us have really, elementary principal wise, have really kind of cohesively worked together, and we're putting forth policies, protocols, things that are common now across all 5 buildings. Whereas maybe in previous years, it wasn't so much like that. So we've kind of got that common theme across the district, which I think is fantastic. And our parent involvement piece looks different. Like, for example, the Moorish PTO and the Elms Road PTA have combined together because we know that we share families. And so right now, in fact, 11 minutes ago, they just started their PTO meeting. So as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to try to hop on there. But it's kind of been a really cool collaboration for parents even to kind of look across that K2, 3, 5 building scenario and work together in that aspect as well.
And then lastly, in that collaboration piece, teachers have kind of organically collaborated within their modalities. We have these 3 different modalities, whether they are face-to-face or hybrid or online, and they have organically collaborated with each other across the district. So that was not something we anticipated necessarily, but it has happened, and they are sharing out ideas and resources and connecting with people outside of their building at a much higher rate than they were previously. So I think our biggest aha and grow has been that collaboration piece, and that just helps teachers grow, which helps our students have more access to new tips and tricks. All right, increased instructional time. So we are, as Alice talked about, able to really look at our regulation. We have all of our wellness room, which is on our MTSS side of behavior. So we've been able to approach our dysregulated behavior, and that has significantly changed at the K2 level. And the 3-5 students have increased opportunity for leadership roles within the building. One of the things that we kind of looked at was our SWIS data, which is our discipline referral data from last year to this year. And we approximately have about a 50% decrease in student behaviors across all 5 buildings. And so research shows us that we have our behaviors in check, we are able to tackle our academics, which results in increased instructional time, which we are very excited about. Alice?
And I think one of the primary reasons for this is because as a building, we've, like at Morch, the teachers have really kind of embraced that age appropriate behaviors. So they're starting to understand that this is a typical 5-year-old behavior or typical 6-year-old behavior, because there are more teachers teaching that same age level that they can collaborate with, talk with, kind of work things out with. And so our approach to how we respond to these behaviors, our approach to what we believe can be a learning moment for these kids is totally different than maybe last year, where it would have been a simple, you know what, just go to the office. Now it's more like, okay, let's see what we can work with for this child so that they can stay in class, so that they continue to learn.
Next, we just wanted to touch upon all of our learning management systems and resources. We have a list here. So at the beginning of the year, as Alice mentioned, in August, we were all at Gaines because the other 4 buildings were still under construction. And so we were really able to hone in and get feedback from the teachers on what programs that they really think that they needed in order to be successful to start out with. So we have Canvas and Accelerate, as you can see, Google Classroom, we're using Google Docs, Think Central, Reading Wonders, Reflex Math, Studies Weekly, and as we talked about, Positivity Project and Second Step. Alice, on Moby Max.
Yeah, you pretty much covered everything on that one.
Beautiful. All right. And then lastly, we'll go over, we always love pictures. We love to show you what we're doing in the buildings, and we're so proud of all of our students and teachers and support staff. So Alice, do you want to go ahead and take the first one?
Yeah, so the picture on the left-hand side is a picture of our STEM coordinator, Catherine Russell, at Morch Elementary. And she's really been able to work hand in hand with the teachers to provide not only age-appropriate science and technology lessons, but ones that are also COVID approved. So, you know, creating little kits for each individual kid so that we're not sharing materials, and really building that excitement for science at an age appropriate level. So that's been really exciting to see.
Yes, and I will add that is happening across the 3-5s as well, which is really nice. The kids are able to get a little bit more into those in-depth experiments at that age level. We still also have time to do some student enrichment. We celebrated Veterans Day and Thanksgiving and Halloween across the building, so we're still able to do those very safely with the children, and it provides, you know, I guess some sense of normalcy of things that we, you know, traditionally do in a school building. Alice?
So when the weather was nice, because, you know, obviously we've kind of had to curb some of the field trips, we wanted to get kids outside. And so this is a picture of Mrs. Sorter's first grade classroom, properly distanced, but reading outside and enjoying the weather outdoors, just for an activity to be outside. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Nope,
Alice.
keep going, that's fine.
And then lastly, we wanted to showcase our online learners. This is Jamie Holderbaum's pictures from her class. She teaches kindergarten. So these are a couple of her online students. They did a leaf experiment. It looks like they needed to go out and choose a leaf, and then they had to describe it. So as you can see, it talked about how long their leaf was, and they had to type in the box. And then with the election, she did a little bit of social studies unit, and there were all of those different characters. They had speeches, and then the students had to vote, and Dragon Dog got the most votes, and he was the new kindergarten class president. And then lastly, we can never forget about games, you know, near and dear to my heart. So these are some of those safety STEM activities that we talked about. Each of the students have their own kit. We have technology learning in the classroom, and kids doing centers. And then I'm so excited this year, our 4th and 5th graders adopted a calf. Her name is Snowflake, and she was born on October 2nd, 2020. So Gaines has a cow, well, a baby cow, a calf. So we are excited to have her to the Dragon family. Alice?
So some of the things that we are looking at as far as grows or things to come, we talked about the virtual platforms. And so helping students and their families kind of navigate all of those, whether it's Google Classroom, Canvas, whatever it might be, we're learning how to help them. And then in addition to that, just getting more comfortable with the online tools and resources ourselves. We have many available to us, but how do we really truly use those, and how do we really truly integrate those into our lesson plans? And then also giving some student remote support. So, you know, how do we engage those kids that would typically be hard to engage in a face-to-face setting anyways, and now we're looking at remote learning. So how do we really involve them in all of this? How do we incorporate our Creek kids, social emotional learning with that? Like, we just started our Creek slips for Creek rewards. How do we integrate that into some learning online platforms as well? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was great. I think we captured all of that there. And so thank you for all of your support. We know that it was a very big decision for us to move to this model, and we just are so excited for all of the things that we've been able to do within it. And we think it's just been a really, really great opportunity thus far.
I know that the board will probably have some questions for both of you. I'm not sure, Rod, if you maybe could speak, as you obviously oversee the instructional side of the district from your seat. If you'd like to make any comments about what you've seen from the MTSS side and the alignment that you're seeing across the district.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you to Ms. Preer and Ms. Lashbrook for showing a picture of what's been going on, and as well as Ms. Wildy and Mr. Simonson. When they talk about the collaboration and the hard work that's been put in, there's been you know, a lot of effort on top of the multiple continuity of learning plans, as well as planning out what it looks like at K2 and 3-5. And I would absolutely agree that the collaboration has increased so much, not just between the principals, but between the teachers at each grade level, having more teachers within the grade levels to be able to collaborate with. But even in this unusual year of COVID, you know, having groups of blended teachers who can collaborate, and having groups of online and fully virtual teachers who are collaborating. So the collaboration has been amazing at both the teacher level and the administration level. I think that from an MTSS perspective, there's been a great alignment when we're looking at data for, you know, math and reading, and we're talking about, you know, what are the resources that Reading Wonders has, and especially when you're going online and you're trying to pull things off of Think Central for math expressions. That alignment has been really well laid out for age appropriateness. What does that look like at a K2 level, and what does that look like at a 3-5 level? And especially this year, with the amount of stress on our educators, the amount of stress on our students, the amount of stress on our parents who are going back and forth and dealing with remote learning, either by choice or because of having to, take a break during the pandemic. We have really looked at what does those specific groups need, and talked about, as Kay said, the second step program, but also our social workers have been able to be a little bit more equally shared, so that they're looking at, what does a 5, 6, and 7-year-old look like, as a couple of our social workers are 4 or 5 days in one building, and another one is 4 days in another building. And so they're able to really work within that building, within those groups of students and teachers, and really reach out to those families who are struggling. But kudos to all of the hard work, because it's really been a double planning year. And I can't imagine going through the pandemic had we still been in the K5, because if you think about having to go into 3 modalities, and you got your blended, and you got the online, and you got the face-to-face, and all the different protocols that have been forced down upon us, and having to split that out when you may only have 1 class or 2 classes, I can't imagine how it even worked. But because we're in that K2 and 3-5 setting, there's been able to have that balance. Now, obviously, it's not even closely to what we expected the balance to be, because we're running 3 modalities, but it's way more balanced than had we tried to attempt all of this from the old model. So it was, in my opinion, a great move, because the flexibility during the pandemic has been very helpful. So kudos to all involved. It's been a crazy year, and I'm really kind of proud of the work that's been put in by our different stakeholders to make it successful.
I would assume that there'll be some questions from board members for Mrs. Preer and Mrs. Lashbrook. So I don't know if any of you have any questions.
Anybody?
I would just like to thank them, all 4 of them, for everything they do. And I don't think people understand how many hours they put in a day or a week. I like to just thank them for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Anybody else?
I agree, and I would second that. I appreciate all that they do, all the extra work and all the effort. I just truly appreciate them. I want them to know that.
I have a comment.
Go ahead, Mike.
I appreciate Ms. Pryor, Ms. Lashbrook, and Rod's presentation. I'm glad that from this perspective that it's working out well. I hope that we get through this, and I hope it was a good move. However, I do feel that the board needs to hear from the teachers, the support staff, and the parents concerning this model change. They are the ones that have been highly affected by this change. Whether it's good or bad, I think the board should also get that feedback.
We can schedule that at a future update for sure.
I would like to say thank you very much to you ladies, and as well to all the principals, because as it's already been said, I know that we don't fully appreciate all the work that you've done to make everything happen for the school year. And I'm super excited. I have to say, I hoped for it, but I didn't really realize when you were talking about the I think you could turn them the creek rooms, but for dysregulation behavior issues reducing by 50%. That just warmed my heart for so many reasons, and I'm so very glad to hear that. And 2 things I know in the beginning, and for some people, that transportation and flow was an issue, but I think a lot of that has gotten worked out, and as some of the construction finishes up, that'll be even better. So I'm bringing it up to make the point that it started out in some areas, and because of the pandemic, a little rocky, but you continue to improve. And so I think the flow and engagement will continue to improve. And to Mike's comment, do either one of you have any comments to share with us about feedback that you've gotten from the community, either positively or negatively, and what maybe even with some of the negative ones, what you've done to be able to address that? Katie or Alice?
I think that, I mean, I haven't heard very many negative things. I think that the parents are very appreciative of the fact that they, if they have a student at Elms, that they can drop everybody off at one location and know that their other child will get to the other school safely. I think that that was a big concern for them when we moved to this model, and when we addressed it and they saw it happening, that was a big weight lifted off their shoulders. As far as like in the classroom, I have not heard any parents complain, and they love their teachers. They love the fact that at Morris that they're surrounded by more, younger kids. And so there aren't fifth graders walking around with kindergartners kind of a thing. So I know the teachers love it. They have more teachers to collaborate with. And so the more minds together, the better ideas that come out of it. So.
Yeah, I have not had negative feedback from either building, parent or teacher. As some of you know, I have a second grade daughter in Alice's building. She's actually in Mrs. Paul's class. And when she walked into school, knowing that she was the big kid in the building, she's a second grader and she had desks, she was like over the moon. Like she thought she was hot stuff. She was the big kid on campus and had a desk. And so she has just really, really thrived in that environment. So thank you to Mrs. Paul for making that such a wonderful transition for her. So we, I'm sure, Mike, there probably may be some parents, Mr. Ahern, that do have some concerns, but they have not come to any four of us with those concerns, and our doors are open for conversations. If there are needs that we need to address, we would love to hear that.
We received quite a few frustrations, as Jessica had reiterated. We received quite a few negative pieces of feedback about this model at the very beginning of school because of the pickup times and those types of things. That is unfortunately more of a product of our parking situation as well as the pandemic, because we can't just have everybody in big groups anymore. I will say all of the buildings have really addressed that, and I think they've actually reduced the amount of time that kids are, in pickup, even beyond a normal pandemic year. So we definitely had to take quick and swift action at the beginning of the year, because it didn't go well at the beginning of the year with the pickups and things like that, and getting all of that figured out. We've also received some feedback just about, the kids that have to wait in the mornings, both at Moorish and Cyrene before they go over. And I think some of that feedback has been, less than positive. Overall, though, I think it's been largely addressed over the course of the school year. So we're trying to adapt and get better. As we've said when we first went to this, it's not a silver bullet. But there have been a lot of very positive things that have come from it as well. So, I'm sure that there are mixed feelings out there. But something that we can certainly do is bring additional stakeholders to, do some future presentations as we round out the year, to come back to this board and give you some additional feedback, maybe at the end of the year.
So thanks. Go ahead, Alicia.
I would just add on, I personally had some anecdotal responses from kids. The children, the number one reason we're doing this, that they had the opportunity to make new friends. It's a larger population of kids their own age that they get to interact with at school, which is their number one place that they meet and make and keep friends. And then, the surprise of walking into a classroom and being able to be at school with my soccer buddy that I only otherwise saw during the summer, and now we're in school together, where before they weren't because they were on opposite ends of the district. So I have heard some of that feedback as well, and just wanted to share that I think our kids have enjoyed having more opportunity to meet more children their own ages.
Thanks, Alicia. And I want to echo everything that's been said. Thank you, Katie and Alice, and to the other building administrators. You guys are doing an amazing job. Grace under fire every day. And I'll add Michelle in there as well. I know that, you guys are doing, weekends and nights, and you're constantly responding to parents, and we couldn't be more impressed and grateful to you. So we do look forward to hearing an update in the future. I'm really excited that we're using those STEM labs to their fullest, and it's exciting to see the kids being able to benefit from that. And I'm also really interested in the future and what this does to children's ability to learn to read and comprehend and be lifelong readers and love the subject. So thank you so much. Thanks for sticking with us. Go join the PTO meeting, Alice, and thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, Ben and Rod, for bringing them to us. That was great. Now we have a bond update and middle school bid discussion.
Yeah, so we have a number of bids for your consideration this evening. I shared with you at our previous board meeting that we did very, very well on our middle school bids. I've brought Jim Venton, who is our project manager, to the meeting tonight, and he is going to give just an update, a brief update on where we're at, give the board any opportunity to ask questions about the middle school bids that are going to be there for your consideration this evening. So Jim, are you online here?
Yes. Yep. As Ben said, we took bids on the middle school project on November 10th. We had a good turnout. We had about 70 bidders submit bids for it. We had as many as 10 bids in some categories, 7 to 10. So our bigger packages, we had really good turnout. We did come in under budget, which is a good thing. We submitted a recommendation letter that kind of gives a description of the process. Couple of things to note in our recommendation: as far as the concrete bid division, the low bidder was poured brick walls. They did not include a complete package. They requested that their bid was removed from consideration. They didn't include the site concrete or the flat work. They just included the foundation, so it was an incomplete bid. And then also on the paving bid division, you'll see if you went through the packet that we're actually awarding to the third bidder on the base bid, but with a recommendation to include the alternate number one, which is the parking lot on the south side of the building, as part of the project. That made them, their bid for the alternate made them the low bidder. So you'll see that on there, that we're recommending that actually the third bidder on base bid. Like I say, we did come in under budget, and that's with the alternate number one, which was the parking lot, and then also alternate number two, which was included. There's a section of pipe in the building that was leaking, that was not being addressed as part of the base bid or worked on as part of the base bid, but we took the opportunity to get that included as an alternate because we're gonna have the ceilings out of the corridor where that pipe's located, and it's the appropriate time to replace that pipe before we put new ceilings up. Does anybody have any questions? We did have a couple adjustments to the bids. Mena Steel, which is a steel contractor, they excluded some anchor bolts that were not part of the structural steel. They go on the top of masonry walls to hold some wood blocking on. So we got a price from them. It's $583. So that was a small adjustment. Then we had a larger adjustment for A1 glass. There were some fire rated frames steel frames that were included in the general trades bid division description. Only one bidder in the general trades, which was the 6th bidder out of 7, included that work in their bid. A1 Glass included a voluntary add alternate in their base bid or on their bid proposal to include that work. So that's where you see the adjustment of $81,369 for the glass bid division. And then excuse me, also Nectarline Electric. They included a clock system in their base bid that was specified, but it was not the one that was included in the rest of the building. So we took an add on that to provide a national time clock system, which would make that similar to the rest of your buildings that we've done so far. Anybody have any questions on that right now, or excuse me? Right now,
I do have one, Jim,
okay,
if I may.
Sure.
Goes back to the frames. Is there a specific reason why those frames need to be fire rated? Do you know?
Yeah.
And why, I guess, and why only one of the contractors included it?
Well, why only one out of the 7 included it's a question. I guess it was listed out as part of their bid division as far as the spec sections that they were responsible for. I know with Graham Construction, the low bidder, they were confused on when they basically submit the spec sections to on the general trades package. They have subcontractors that they get quotes from to include in their base bid. They submitted the spec sections to their door and hardware supplier. They were confused on the specs, so they did not include. They included fire rated frames, but not the system that was specified. Yeah, so the reason for the frame, they are required per code to be fire rated steel frames, just because with the updates to the building and the additions, they have to separate the building into smaller sections for fire ratings, just for the occupancy based on the new remodel and addition work. So they are required.
Okay.
So based on
go ahead. Any other questions for Jim?
Jim, yeah, I have one.
Go ahead, Mike.
Jim, at the bond steering committee, I think it was the last meeting, you talked about the timing of this second bid, helping the bids come in lower than the first bids. Can you just talk to that briefly and the timing that we were involved in this time?
Yeah, the first time we bid the project out, it was bid out in June and July. So that's the busy time of year for everybody. So people are less hungry for work. So when we rebid it out in November, people had finished up their summer work and they had more time available to bid for one thing. And then they're also looking to fill their plates for the next couple of years, because this is a phased project with 2 summers of renovation plus additions going on throughout the year. So bidding it out in November, we usually find it's a good time of year to bid it, just because people are trying to fill their books for the next year. So we definitely had better participation. And we also had the economy's changed a little bit, where people are they're looking for work a little more than they were back in the summer. We've been facing all along, basically up till this point, where contractors had all the work they needed. So the prices are higher just because of that. They don't really need the work anymore. So we're getting to the point where contractors are starting to look for work. They need it now. So we did definitely receive better pricing on the packages. And then there are also some design modifications from the first time we bid it out, because we did come over budget. So there were some design modifications as well to help the final bid price.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mike, could I add on to that question? What Mike just asked about the first bid and the second bid from November. What was, if you've got an approximate number of what the original cost was going to be, and then what it was now, what we're looking at now, what was the percentage less or the amount less between the 2 bids?
I don't have the first bid tab in front of me, but we were about $9.5 million the first time, and we came in about $7.5 million this time. on base bid, and then with the alternate, we're about 7.9 million. So we're about $1.5 million less than we were the first go around.
So it was a good decision.
Yes, definitely.
Real good decision. Good.
Any other questions for Jim? Thanks, Jim. We appreciate it very much.
Yep. And just so everybody knows, I think Mike mentioned it earlier, we do have the high school additions and remodel out for bids right now. We're doing our pre-bid meeting next Monday, and then bids are due on December 18th. So hopefully we have a similar turnout and similar under budget when we come in, but we'll be bringing those back to you in January for recommendations for the high school project.
And just to kind of double down on that timeline means that we'll be approving or recommending for approval bids on the 13th of January, which will essentially put the middle school and high school projects commencing later this spring, which will be happening concurrently. So we'll have a lot of work between those two large buildings going on starting this spring.
Thanks, Ben. All right. If there are no more questions or comments, let's move on to the extended continuity of learning plan.
All righty. I would like to just open up the plan for you to review a couple different items. I'm going to share a few documents with you. So first of all, this is our extended continuity of learning plan, which you've seen, and we do confirm every month at our meeting. This particular document, if I scroll down, and I'm going down near the bottom because as a result of an emergency rule order 5.8 from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, as well as a MIOSHA ruling, more recently we were required to require staff to work remotely wherever possible. So part of our extended continuity of learning plan now includes some language that is related to those orders. That order was issued in the middle of October, and basically we had to comply and create language that would describe workplace considerations. So we've grouped different people in our organization into different risk categories. Basically operations, central administration, and then school building are the three kind of groups. And then we've had to determine what jobs or tasks they have, whether they're low, medium, or high risk. And essentially, people are working remotely unless the work that they do is infeasible to do at home. So obviously our maintenance personnel, our custodial staff, our teachers when they're teaching in person, some of our administrators, a lot of the work that they are required to do is infeasible at home, so they have to work in the district. Wherever possible, wherever work can be done remotely, we are doing that. We are also doing rotations within our offices so that parents have access to us and will answer phones and things like that, but they're being handled on rotations so we don't have too many people gathering at one time. So this MIOSHA policy, if you will, is a part of the extended continuity of learning plan now. And that's required by the orders that are in place currently. And you have that document. I also want to draw your attention to a document that I sent you related to the data package for today. So I'm going to pull that up here in just a moment. So this is a document that is hot off the press today. I obviously have made this document available to you at every meeting so that you can have the data to decide on how you want to continue to move forward. Our current cases obviously have gone up since over the last month or two. We're still seeing a very low number of cases with our elementary schools. We have just seen a tremendously low number of kids that have had cases, and almost 0% of the transmission has come from school buildings. The snapshot of data from this past month, obviously you can see there are more and more cases that have been coming. We are starting to see a tapering and actually starting to see those decline. If you look at the last few days, we've registered consistently lower numbers of cases each day. Additionally, if you look at the percent positive, we're seeing a trend that had reached kind of a peak here in the last, the daily positivity rate reached 16.5%. We're starting to see that come back down. It's kind of ebbing and flowing a little bit. Sorry, it reached 18% at one point back earlier this month, and it's starting to come down. Deaths, of course, remain very low compared to the average 1 million persons. This is the tests that have been administered, and you can see we're just continuing to deliver thousands upon thousands of tests. So daily we're administering thousands of tests. This is the hospitalizations. You can see a steady increase into this month. Really has been peaking over the last week. And most recently, even the numbers down under 200. So we're starting to see the hospitalizations starting to decrease. In talking with the health department, their report for this week is that they've had 41% of ventilators available, which is more than they had last week. They are seeing the daily number of COVID inpatients decreasing. And we're seeing the adult ICU occupancy at 84%, which is decreased from what it was last week. And we obviously have plenty of PPE. These are the local statistics from the county. I will say, since our last board meeting, the cases have almost doubled in the areas that we've described here. And then this is, of course, a percentage of cases overall by age group. So these are some of our local and countywide statistics as it relates to COVID-19. So one of the real decisions that I think needs to be considered tonight by this board, and it's really a decision of this fiduciary body, is to determine what our plan is moving forward. So I'll speak to that, and then, of course, turn it over to you for discussion. Back when the emergency order went into effect just this past month, we were required to take a pause for all high school students and their instruction. That period of time ends on December 9th. We additionally had large numbers of staff who had to be quarantined and so on and so forth. The vast majority of the county chose to shift their learning to remote learning into the 3rd or 4th week of January through the first semester. There are a small handful of school districts, Goodrich, Davison, us, who have tentatively planned to come back this next week. We also have a couple school districts, I believe Clio and Montrose, who have maintained their K-8 programming. And then, of course, I believe, just in talking with one of our board members today, Powers, I believe, is still going. They're a little bit different. They're, obviously being a private school, but there are a small number of schools that have continued to go. And so part of my role as the superintendent is to respond to these emergencies, to be able to make those decisions. And so now I chose to make sure that we didn't have the duration be too long, because it's really a decision that this board needs to weigh in on. So the question, I think, for tonight, of course, the MIOSHA ruling has put those policies into our extended continuity of learning plan. But the real question is, at what point do we need to make any adjustments to our learning plan? And so with that, I think you need to decide, do we come back to school next week as we've originally planned? Or would you like to see the amount of time that our students are in virtual mode be extended? And so here are a couple thoughts for consideration. Number one, if we choose to come back to school as we've originally communicated for next week, we absolutely can come back to school. We will have our teams ready to go, and we will have our students back in class and ready to rock and roll. And I think that there are a lot of kids that are eager and staff eager to get back to school. Of course, additionally to that, there's a tremendous benefit to having kids in school in terms of the learning level of continuity and consistency. You will find that there's no replacement for face-to-face learning, and certainly we're doing some really innovative things in an online setting, but kids in school in a face-to-face format is certainly superior to from an instructional side. Some counter to that, and talking with our teacher leadership team and talking with many of our teachers, their hope is that we will remain remote at least through the holidays, because one of the factors that's at play is obviously the safety issue of gathering and things like that. Additionally, one of the things that's really difficult for teachers is switching back and forth. So to go virtual for 2 weeks, to come back face-to-face for 2 weeks, to go off for 2 weeks, the switching back and forth creates some transitional problems for kids and staff. And so that's a concern that they have. And obviously, we have seen an increase in cases compared to what we saw in the spring. And so staffing can become an issue. We're currently seeing some of our teachers in quarantine and having cases. And so we need to obviously have our teachers there and our staff to be able to run effectively our classrooms. So a couple thoughts on both sides of that coin on what to do. And so really the decision rests with you. So I think before you tonight is really a request to say, we're going to continue with our stated plan as it sits, and we're coming back next week and following our calendar as prescribed. Another option would be to say, we would like to, in this time, extend the pause of face-to-face learning for a period of time, and then you as a board could decide when that period would be. And I certainly will be here to guide you and make recommendations, but I feel like this is a decision that you as a board need to discuss and then make a decision on.
So why don't we start by asking Ben any questions we might have related to this? Go ahead, Alicia.
Ben, I had asked you directly previously, but for the entire board's perspective as well as the community, how are we positioned right now with staff if we were to return?
We would be able to return. I will say that there will be issues with subs at this point. If a teacher is quarantined or ill or sick, it's very, very challenging. And so we don't have a lot of latitude. If we go into that situation and we have a couple additional cases that come up, say, the end of next week, we may be in a position where we would have to say, we need to close because we don't have enough staff members to feasibly run the building. Now, that would be not a guarantee. I mean, certainly we have people who are healthy who are not in quarantine. And so, I would definitely say we can go either direction, but I would be wanting to be very clear that there is a much higher level of challenge in staffing our buildings right now face to face than we had early in the year.
Go ahead, Mike.
I have a question for Alicia. I hear in the news, and I'm sure everybody does, that because of the Thanksgiving travel, which was very heavy, that we're not going to see the effects of that for about 2 more weeks. And there are medical personnel that are saying that there's going to be a surge upon the surge that we're in. From your experience, do you think that's true? Do you expect that to happen?
First of all, that would be my own personal opinion to disclose. I mean, everything will tell you scientifically and medically that the incubation period can last anywhere from 7 days. So is that a possibility? Yes. I guess it depends on the amount of travel and exposure that individuals had, and there's unfortunately human behavior that we can't stop. So if people did in fact travel and congregate and potentially further expose or share, I mean, is that a possibility? Yes, but without a crystal ball, I can't tell you exactly what type of rise that may produce.
Okay. I have a concern because of the Thanksgiving travel that the Christmas travel may be just as bad. I hope it isn't, but I'm going to predict that it will be.
Ben, can we clarify what you meant by end of winter break?
Sure. So, I mean, if one of your choices was to say you want to obviously bring us back, the way that would work is we're expected to come back. Our 9-12 students could come back December 9th, and our K-8 students would come back on December 7th that week. They would be in school for about 2 weeks. And then, we would be slated to go on break on the 23rd, and obviously they would be out for a couple weeks. So if you were to look at returning, January 4th would be kind of immediately after the break, and then, again, determining when you would, if you would want to wait beyond that, that would be January 11th. It's obviously my recommendation. It's typically cleaner from a calendar perspective to do something on a Monday. Obviously, the reason why we have the 7th and the 9th for next week as a tentative return is because the order specifically states 9-12 students through December 8th, which would mean December 9th is the soonest they could return. So does that give you a little bit of background on the calendar side of it?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure if we're going to make recommendations, we understand what that time frame looks like.
Okay, and the second semester starts on the 19th of January?
Mr. Heatherton, I'll let you weigh in on that, but I believe it's actually the 26th. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the calendar for second semester is the next week, not the 19th. The 19th would be the Tuesday after Martin Luther King. I think that Tuesday is our first day back of that week, but the next week is the end of the first semester.
So the second semester, I believe, begins on the 25th of January. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm
Would be
go ahead,
possible,
Jessica.
And I don't know if you'd prefer not, because I'm looking at Mrs. Corbett and Brendan here. When Ben was speaking about with the teachers and having some continuity and not going back and forth between in person and online a little bit, I noticed Brendan nodding his head as well when Ben mentioned that for teachers and for students. And I'm wondering if it is appropriate to ask a little bit for perspective from Brendan as a student, and if Mrs. Corbett might be willing and able to speak to, as Ben said as well, if we go out, if we come back and we have staff that sadly might be sick, what that experience is like from a principal's perspective, just to get a better view. I know that we want to do what's best for the students, but since they're here with us, does it make sense to get any feedback from them? And if that's okay, but I just thought I'd ask since I'm looking at them.
Michelle, Brendan, are you able to share?
Yes, I can. From an academic standpoint, I definitely think it would be easier to stay virtual for the students and teachers, especially since break is coming up rapidly. But even if we were to go back, I don't doubt, I mean, teachers are very versatile as it is. I don't doubt our teachers would be able to make that switch and do it in a fluid manner, but I definitely think it would be easier on them to maintain staying virtual. But there may be some teachers and maybe some students who disagree with me on that. That is my opinion.
And I would just add that it would make a difference in how the teachers are planning for their instruction. I've had teachers reaching out to me today, and as a matter of fact, just a little while ago, asking if I knew, what the decision was, because how they plan for a virtual classroom is much different than how they would plan for face-to-face or a hybrid classroom. So as Ben said, it's not that it can't be done, but the sooner that that a decision is made, the more prepared they can be either way for whatever decision the board makes. We have had some staff in quarantine. We've had some challenges with staffing. So, I can't predict next week how many cases there will be, but that's definitely something you should discuss.
Go ahead, Mike.
Another consideration I think that we should be concerned about is childcare for the parents. I mean, the parents, we're online now, and the working parents have had a chance to take care of their, or make plans for their childcare. We go back online, or we go back face to face, and then we end up going back online, they're going to switch again. I think we should keep that in mind.
Thanks, Mike. Anyone else?
I have a couple of questions, Carrie. I'll wait till who's ever there. That just
Okay, go ahead, Brian, and then we'll hear from Chuck.
Brendan, he was breaking up a little bit. So is he recommending virtual? Is Brendan recommending virtual?
Yes, I definitely think it would be easier on the teachers. Sorry.
That's okay, Brendan. I think we got it. I think you said you thought it would be easier on the teachers, correct? Okay.
To go virtual.
Yes.
Okay. It was just breaking up and it was hard for me to understand.
Did you have other questions, Brian?
No, that'll be it.
Okay, go ahead, Chuck.
Oh, okay, thank you. Hey, Ben, I know you got your numbers there. I have a hard time pulling up stuff on my screen here, but let's look at it from just a more logical perspective. Our K through 8 kids, how many kids were sick the 4 weeks prior to the close down when Governor Whitmer closed it down the last time? And I know K through 8 we did voluntarily because of the high school being mandatorily closed down. Do we have that number readily available?
I will try and pull something up here. Just bear with me for a second.
And if the whole board can see it, because
yep, I'm going to pull it up.
My second follow-up question is going to be, because numbers don't lie, is since we closed, how many kids, if we're keeping track, have gotten COVID when they're at home? Give me those numbers. I think that will help the board make a more educated decision on that, and it helped me make the decision too.
Yeah,
and so everybody knows where I'm going at. If we had 10 people in the 4 weeks before, and we had 10 people or 10 children on the 4 weeks after, then the numbers aren't working. We should be back in school if that's the true numbers. I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, I can give you a little perspective on that. So first and foremost, in talking with the health department, there's a couple things to your question. Number one, I don't have this split out to tell you the exact date of when all of the kids, have been, positive versus before versus this past week. I
Right.
will tell you that
But we do have those numbers somewhere. Those numbers have to be documented somewhere.
we do, yeah. So what I can tell you though is that the health department and even in conversations that I've had with individuals there, you're probably not going to see a large difference in cases from the students, whether they're off or whether they're on. And there's two things to speak on of that. This document represents cases that have happened in school-associated situations. And what that means is they've been in school and then they had a case, okay? So it wasn't necessarily that they got it at school. They could have, transmission could have happened at home or at a party or at a bonfire. But the fact is they were at school at some point within their period of time that they could have been contagious, which means they're a school-associated case. This chart, in fact, the guidance we've been given is we actually don't chart kids that have been positive after that because of the fact, now we help with contact tracing, but it's not considered a school-associated case. So that's number one. But in talking with members of the health department, and I think even anecdotally, school is one of the safest places for kids to be. So if you're talking about student cases, the student cases themselves, I think you're probably going to see maybe even an increase in cases as the students are away from school, because they tend to be going to places where they're not wearing their masks. They're going to gatherings and doing things with families or each other, especially in the case of high school kids, where they're actually more likely to get it because at school, they're in a controlled environment, they're following the procedures, and I will say our students are phenomenal at complying with our safety regulations. So there's actually an argument to be made, which is where I think you're going to say, the student case numbers actually are probably increasing as they're away from school because they're outside of that controlled environment. The health department, and I think the rationale behind going remote is less about the student cases, as students have demonstrated tremendous resiliency in that. It's more about public health as a whole and the number of grandparents that might be overseeing or watching children who do have a tendency to transmit the virus, and also the staff and just the sheer numbers of staff that have to oversee kids and the risk factors there. So I don't know if that gives you some information to kind of help in the discussion.
Well, I kind of knew the answer without the exact numbers. But everything that I've been looking at and reading and researching is saying that kids are getting more sick outside of the school than they are inside. So for us closing the school and saying, oh, we're saving everybody, at least the children, is not, if they want to use the science, they have the numbers, and that's why they don't want to present them wholeheartedly. Now, as far as the kids spreading them to parents and other people, I don't think we could control that, whether they're in school or out of school. And I think all the board members agree with that. That's us policing ourselves. Are we going to spread it or not? And if we keep delaying it and keep talking about, well, we just came back from Thanksgiving and we don't know where everybody was at. Well, everybody's a big boy and a big girl. They knew what they were supposed to do. And I'm not promoting that we just do whatever because they didn't police themselves correctly. But we all have a horse in this race. And we're never going to get at the finish of the race if everybody doesn't figure it out. And if we use the argument that, well, the Thanksgiving, everybody's been out doing things that they're not supposed to do, and we wait till after Christmas to start school again, what's the argument to say, well, everybody was out, at Christmas parties and all this, and now we got to stop again. And we got to wait another several weeks. And then Easter break comes, and then, oh, it's Easter break, and everybody did this and that. And now we got to wait a few more weeks. I'm not saying, I just think the board needs to consider those arguments or those points. It's not really an argument, a point. And I think it's a logical point. And I think that, I've said my 2 cents, but I think that's the way I'm looking at things. Okay, so thank you for your time.
I think the answer to that is vaccine. And I hope by Easter that vaccine is here. Students are safer at school. I agree with that. Teachers and staff are not safer at school. With no staff, there can't be no school. I agree, there's no replacement for face-to-face instruction. That's true. there's also no replacement for a COVID death. And there's going to be more COVID tests. I know how I'm going to vote.
Go ahead, Tony. Looks like you had something to say.
I mean, this is a hard one. I've thought about this for a while. Because I agree with Chuck that kids need to be in school. But how many teachers can you afford or staff to get sick where you have to close a building down? If 3 teachers at Morris were quarantined, could you continue school?
Yeah, it would be completely dependent on how many staff members we would be able to find substitutes for, and if it happened in multiple buildings. We got dangerously close to closing Deke earlier this year because of just a small number of staff members that had been tested positive.
See, that's my concern is I don't think we have the staff to make it for the next 2 weeks without going back for 4 or 5 days and then closing a class or closing a building. And that's putting an extra burden on the parents. So that's where my struggle is at.
I do have, if I may say, I think that answer a little bit Chuck's question about some of the numbers of looking at when we met and the numbers from November 11th, which is I think 3 weeks ago. At that time, we only had 2 current positive cases in staff. And I think, what are we at, 11 now? And then we only had cases in 2 of our schools with teachers. And right now we presently have active current cases with teachers in all but 2 of our schools. And again, to Tony's, well, to Chuck's point, it may not necessarily be so much about the kids, but with regards to the stress on the staff. And again, to use the term, I guess, the continuity of learning to jump back and forth, both for our students and for our staff. Is that adding stress and affecting what they're learning? And is it really worth it? I'm not certain, but that's what I'm taking into consideration right now.
That's a good point, Jessica. Thank you for bringing that up. I didn't know that. Yeah. So
and, wait. Can I say one last thing, Chuck, real
Sure.
quick? Because you asked about the numbers.
Yes.
Comparatively.
Yeah, I haven't seen. I don't have the current
back
chart.
Then, the one that Ben emailed today compared to 3 weeks ago, like currently 3 weeks ago we had 195 students quarantined. Right now we have 373.
What about the staff again? You said there was actually more staff now than there was when we were
we have 11 current staff now. Yes. Current positive cases among staff is 11 presently in all but actually 3 buildings. I take that back. The VLC, Deke, and Gaines are the only 3 that do not have current positive staff cases.
Yeah, just let me get this. Yeah. Okay. So actually we have just a few more now that were out of school than when we were in school.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
We have currently a few more now than when we were in school.
Yeah, we have nearly over 5 times. We had only 2 positive cases on November 11th among our staff.
Yeah, I don't want to put anybody in harm's way. That's why I brought up the numbers, because the numbers just, and I don't, and to Mike's concern, that's the last thing I want, somebody dying, and we're going to wait for the vaccine. But at some point we have to I'm just bringing up the other point of view on it. I'm not 100% decided which way I want to go. I just, I'm hearing things and seeing things and trying to research it. So, okay, thanks. I appreciate everybody's input.
Thanks, Chuck. Ben, can you clarify that on your chart that the 10 people that are staff that are quarantined, is that current?
Yes.
Okay. So that those are folks over and above, or they include that 11?
Are you talking about the quarantine
The
numbers?
staff. Yeah. So is the quarantine separate from the folks that have positive cases?
Yes.
So technically we have 22 staff that are out right now?
Yes.
Okay.
And Carrie, that's more than what we had when we were in school.
That's correct.
That's just what I was trying. I know this is a very delicate situation, but they send us all home and then we end up with more cases before we even, and it could be part of it due to the Thanksgiving Day weekend, but that might be a little too soon to discuss those numbers because I don't think we'll have a full week before we get those numbers. But that's all I wanted the board to consider. I'm not for or against it. I'm just, like I said, playing the advocate on the other side of it, because I know a lot of parents want their children to go back to school and a lot of them want them to stay home, but that's a choice they can work. And if we don't have enough staff, though, it doesn't really matter if we can put them back to work or not, or back to school. So them are all good points. Thanks.
So Ben, to further clarify, sorry, and I don't know if you can share this information, but of the 72 people between the positive cases and quarantined folks, what percentage are educators versus support staff?
Well, we would classify them all as educators. I think you're talking through teachers. We have a large number of our quarantines and cases are support staff. Handful of them are teachers. I don't have those specific things, so we don't disaggregate that, but I think there are more support staff cases than there are teacher cases at this time.
Okay.
That's our parapros, Ben, and custodians and secretaries.
Yep, and could be bus drivers, anybody in that category.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Carrie, for asking that question.
No problem. I just want to make sure because sometimes I know you can't share that level of information if
Right.
it would identify someone, but we have a lot of numbers here. So I just want to make sure I got everybody's input, but I also would suggest that we look at a recommendation with a date for either the students to return to school face-to-face. Is there anybody that either needs to comment and or would like to make that recommendation? I think Ben made it 2 suggestions. One was to come back next week as he described as it permitted by the orders, and then also to look at continuing remotely, possibly through the beginning of the calendar year.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Mike?
Do you want a motion?
I'm sorry?
Did you say you wanted a motion, Carrie?
And yeah, unless there's others that would like to comment, and they'll still have an opportunity after the motion.
Okay, I'd like to see us stay online till the end of the semester. Go back face to face on the second semester, if it's appropriate at that time.
Which
Can I ask a quick question?
Go ahead, Jessica, because I don't have a support yet.
As a board, we will not meet until January 13th, correct? That would be our next time of addressing the ECOL again?
Yes.
Right.
Don't we have a meeting mid-December, I thought? Maybe not.
Or do we have?
We do. Yes, we have a board meeting on December 13th. At that meeting, you won't be addressing the extended continuity of learning plan again. We could certainly add it to the agenda again, but you technically wouldn't be slated to discuss it again until January.
And the end of the semester is January
25th. Well, the beginning of the semester is the 25th. Sorry.
25th.
Mike, is there any way, at least as of right now, would you be willing to modify that to January 11th? So they would be coming back on a Monday, and it would be the week after we were slated to come back anyway. So from the Christmas holiday, that's roughly 2 weeks. So we'd have a better idea of where cases stood with our staff to make sure that we're prepared to come back.
Move it to January 11th, right?
Correct.
Sure.
Would you be willing to do that? Then I'll second it.
So Mike, I just want to clarify, you're okay with your motion
with that.
through 111? To return on 111 or to,
Yes.
okay. Jessica,
sorry,
you
Mike.
support?
I'd like to second Mike's first motion. Coming back at the beginning of the first, second semester.
Well, to do that, Tony, I think we have to get Mike to adjust his first, back to his first.
Okay.
So it's up to you, Mike. You initiated the motion.
Okay, I'm sorry, Ben. When is the January meeting? Is it the 11th?
The January board meeting is on January 13th.
13th.
And that's our organizational meeting, and that would be also where we would be looking at the calendar for the rest of the year for board meetings.
Can I ask one more question?
Go ahead.
Just from the administrator standpoint, do the administrators and teachers, is it better for them to see students at all before the end of the semester, if possible? Does that make any difference, or should it have an impact on our decision making? That would like split the difference and come back the 19th after, to give them a few days before the end of the semester in person, or not?
I certainly think that you would find, if you flipped a coin, you would find half of the people that would tell you yes and half that would tell you no. The thought on that is, of course, if you come back before, say, a week or two before the end of the semester, anyone that was having a difficulty getting an assessment completed, anyone that was having a difficulty turning in an assignment, before that end of the semester period, they would have the ability to come back to clear up some of those loose ends. The other side of that coin would say, you know, it's just as easy for me. I'll just collect stuff online and I'm fine starting the semester fresh on the 25th. So I think there's going to be very extreme opinions on both of those expectations. So we're willing and able to do either one, and I think there's a validity to both suggestions.
What if we stay online until the 13th when we discuss this again and make that decision on the 13th? Does that work?
Yeah, I think if you're going to do that, my suggestion would be, and again, I know it sounds weird, but teachers have to plan. And so I would not want to say we would come back on, like the 14th, because then if the decision is to extend it, teachers have already made their plans. So I would say if you want to make that decision again on the 13th, I would say put them out at least until the 19th, which is the day after Martin Luther King Jr. Day, if that was your expectation.
Then I guess I would stick with my 19th date. That was my original.
So Mike, your motion, just to make sure I understood, because I missed part of it. You're suggesting that the students and staff remain virtual until the 19th of January, which I believe is a Tuesday, correct?
That is correct.
So Tuesday, the 19th.
And I will support that.
Okay. All right. Tony, are you okay with that? I don't want to take that away from you.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a support. Alicia, I saw you had your hand up. I was going to ask for comments or questions anyway.
That's what I was waiting for. So my question is, I guess to Ben, in the event that we were to return to school at whatever point, any family that was not comfortable sending their child back to school still has the option to remain online. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
And if I lose you, I'm sorry. I got to plug in or I'm going to die.
Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, we have a motion on the floor for the students and staff to remain virtual until Tuesday, January 19th, 2021. Joanne, would you do roll call, please?
Sure. Brian? I'm sorry, you're muted.
I'm sorry.
Brian's muted. I'll come back to Brian. I can't hear him.
Sorry, can you repeat that, Carrie?
Sorry, I was on mute. I'm sorry. No.
Okay, so did you want me to repeat the motion?
Yes, please. Sorry, I was plugging it in.
The way I understood Mike's motion is that we are recommending that the teachers and students, and I believe, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, staff would remain virtual as appropriate based on their role until Tuesday, January 19th, 2021. Okay.
And I'll take roll call now.
Yes, please.
Okay, Brian?
No.
Chuck?
No.
Tony?
Yes.
Alicia?
No.
Carrie? Carrie?
I know.
That
Do
easy.
you want me to come back to you?
Sure.
Jessica? Jessica, you're muted.
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And Carrie?
I knew you guys were going to do this to me. Ugh. I'm going to say yes.
We have 4 yeses and 3 nos.
Thank you. And I know that there are people in the community that are struggling with this. Either way, this is going to be a challenging decision. I think
it was okay, Gary. It was okay. It was a good discussion. Everybody got their point out, and that's.
I think that everybody, we look out for our children. And I know, Ben, this is hardest for the students. It's also very difficult for the educators and the administrators and the staff.
Yes.
So let's hope this goes away.
Yeah, I agree, and I think Chuck's correct. I think the important part of this board is that not everybody thinks the same way, but that everybody has a chance to voice their opinion. And I think this is an important decision that you guys have to make. And I'm just again pleased with the collaborative nature. And you don't always have to agree, but at least we have a solution that we can start to enact with our staff and students. And of course, we'll execute the will of the board. But I know it's not an easy decision, and no, it's not easy for the staff or the students or the families. I think there's a lot of stakeholders that struggle with this either way. But I'm thankful for the discussion and at least a thoughtful approach to how you guys are making these decisions.
And we appreciate the data that you bring us, Ben, because I think that's critical. And ongoing, it'll be critical. It's kind of disturbing to see how many folks are affected. And it's not just those numbers, it's the people and their families too. So moving on. All right.
Can I just comment? I'd like to say, regardless of how we each individually vote or feel, I do appreciate that this board supports each other no matter what. So the decision is what it is, and we move forward and we work within that.
Amen. All right. So let's move forward. I think, Ben, we have the amazing privilege to bring in a new educator. Is that correct?
We do, yes. And Mrs. Corbett is with us tonight. And so I'd like Mrs. Corbett to introduce an exciting new person to our district. Mrs. Clark has retired as a couple months ago or a month or so ago. And so this is an opportunity to bring somebody in mid-year because of a retirement. So Mrs. Corbett.
Thank you so much. I think this will be a much easier decision for this board. So I am super excited to introduce to you Mr. Kaplan. My first time meeting him was actually when I was the principal at Moorish Elementary. He was one of the premier subs in our district. And I was looking out of the window and saw this man walking around the playground with about 28 little 5-year-olds behind him with these little homemade class-made instruments. He was subbing in a kindergarten classroom, and to see somebody to be able to engage 5-year-olds in such a way just amazed me, especially as a substitute. And so we had the retirement of Mrs. Clark, and Mr. Kaplan had applied for that position. He comes to us with so much experience. I'm sure he's super excited to be able to have heard the discussion about the middle school projects with the new STEAM edition that's coming. He has, in his previous roles, has redesigned science curriculum for grades 6 through 8. He created a cultural shift in teaching where STEAM teaching was modeled and was the expectation. He has worked with at-risk students and after-school STEAM programs to support them with academic success. He has had training and has led different interventions with positive behavior support, with MTSS, with Title I, next generation science standards. Even when schools were closed in the spring and throughout the summer, he got himself enrolled and involved to keep that learning going for himself. I think he'll be an excellent addition to Swartz Creek, and especially to the middle school. He's a culture builder, and I'm super excited for you to meet him, and like to give him a chance to say a few words before you make a motion to vote for him.
Thank you, Ms. Corbett. You can hear me okay, everyone?
Yes.
So I wanted to just say thank you, Ms. Corbett, Mr. Heatherton, and Mr. Manka for the opportunity. I do want to say a special thank you to Ms. Carrie Goupel, who was so instrumental in just helping me with all the paperwork through everything. Just a wonderful member of your team. To the board members and the community of Swartz Creek, thank you for this, for letting me be in here today and for this opportunity, hopefully. I'm excited to be here, to be a member of the team, to be a part of this community that I got to be in for a little while in the past. And I'm super excited to get into that middle school and be with our kids and teach them every day. So thank you.
Thank you. So do you go by RJ?
I do, yes.
Okay, and are we able to call you RJ?
Yes, yes, you can.
I think it's Pied Piper.
The Pied Piper. Any board members have any questions for RJ? All right, I would entertain a motion. Jessica, and I didn't get the second.
Mike.
Mike? Okay, so we have Jessica and Mike. Any comments or questions? All right. Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approves the employment of R.J. Kaplan as a science teacher at the middle school effective January 25th, 2021. Is that correct? as presented. We'll have to modify that resolution. Joanne, could you do roll call, please?
Sure. Tony,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Carrie.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Motion passes. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
And we appreciate your patience and hanging on this evening.
That's okay. Thank you for putting me at the end. It was great.
He says with a smile. Well, thank you. We're very happy that our middle school students will have you on board. Thank you. All right. Next, we have the approval of the elementary window blinds bid. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Brian?
Support.
Tony? Any comments or questions? All right. Hearing none, be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approves the elementary window blind bid to American Interiors for the total cost of $36,530 as presented. Joanne, could you do roll call, please?
Sure. Mike,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
and Brian.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Thank you. Motion passes. We're going to have window blinds. Let's see. Next, we have the approval of the Swartz Creek Middle School pool repair bids. Is there anything we need to know, Ben, that we haven't already heard?
I don't believe so. One thing that I would just recommend as you're looking at this particular recommendation, we are recommending that we go with the better valve because it is slightly more money, but it's going to have more readily available. So it's going to mean that our swimmers are going to be able to get into the pool at least this season, if they have a season, of course, which is up in the air still. But it allows for us to get the pool done more quickly, and it's a better product. So where the prices came in were significantly lower than we were anticipating, which we were originally anticipating in the $40,000 to $60,000 range. So even with the upgraded valve at $29,250, that is our recommendation.
Okay. With that, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Was
Can I
that,
ask a question, Carrie?
sure. Go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, just real quick, Ben, because of my negligence, I was a little late to that meeting and Jessica was nice enough to take the minutes for me. Did that have a guarantee on it? I don't remember what RC said. Were they giving us some type of, I don't know, guarantee for their work or workmanship, so many years or what?
Yes, there is a warranty on their work, and I do not have, unfortunately, the exact time frame, but I know that they do have a warrant. They are warranting their work, and the parts have a warranty that's extended beyond their workmanship period as well.
Okay, good. Thanks. I wanted to get that. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Chuck. Okay, I had Brian, and who was the second? Was that Tony?
Second.
Tony, was it?
Was it Tony?
Yes.
Okay, and
Yes.
Tony? Okay, any other comments or questions? All right. Yes, go ahead, Alicia.
So this is for the repairs. Then general maintenance and everything else, we already have that established in our general fund. I just want to clarify that, correct?
That is correct. We have gone through, as at Building and Site, we've gone through our comprehensive facility study that our RC has just had completed, as we were talking about. And it looks as though the boilers and the heaters and the pumps, they still have a number of years of usable life left, which is good. So we're hoping that we'll be able to get on a more preventative maintenance schedule and replace those at their life expectancy time intervals instead of, waiting until something breaks. But at this point, general operation of the pool is, yes, a part of our budget. This is obviously outside the scope of that because the repairs are not something we generally budget for. So.
Thanks, Alicia. Okay. All right. Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approves the Swartz Creek Middle School pool repair bid to Advanced Pool for the base bid amount of $13,750 and alternate bid option 2 amount of $15,500 for a total bid of $29,250 as presented. Joanne, could you do roll call, please?
Jessica,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
and Carrie.
Yes.
That's 7 yeses.
Thank you, ma'am. All
One
right.
more
moving
question,
on.
Carrie. When were they going to complete the work I mean, now that we're off school for 28 or, up to the 28th there, when were they going to do it? Ben, do you recall?
Yeah, they actually were hoping to get in there over the holiday break. So this will make it so that they have they should have it done well before we return to school. So we'll be able to get the pool up and running and the chemicals tested and things like that. I will just say anecdotally to Chuck's question, the Michigan 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 High School Athletic Association, they're discussing what's going to happen with winter sports seasons, and so obviously a lot of that, whether or not our boys are going to swim is dependent on that decision. So that'll be forthcoming in the next couple weeks.
Okay, great. But the kids will have it ready when they come back if they allow us. Thank you.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, moving on to the reapproval of the 2020-21 Swartz Creek Community Schools Extended Continuity of Learning Plan. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Support.
I heard Alicia and Mike. Is that correct? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Alicia, motion, Mike, second.
Sure.
Any comments
Yes.
or questions? All right. So let's see. To read the. All right. Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approves the reapproval of 2021-21 Swartz Creek Community Schools Extended Continuity of Learning Plan as presented. Joanne, could you do roll call, please?
Yes. Brian,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
and Mike.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Thank you. Motion passes. And then finally, we have the approval of our bid recommendations for the middle school. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Okay, I have Brian and Tony as a tie. I'll take Brian with Tony as a second.
Yes.
All right. Any comments or questions?
What's the total amount again, Carrie, just so we can read it out? I know I have
The
it here.
total cost I have on my motion is $7,902,196.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just a comment. Thank you to the Building and Site Committee, our bond steering committee as well, looking at this and resubmitting for such a better rate. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, any other comments or questions?
And this was how much percentage lower again? So just in case somebody from the public's listening, Ben, do you recall that amount, or Brian?
Yeah, we were at about 9.5 million on the original bids. So we're about $1.5 million lower than we were when we went out a year ago, or back in the summer, I should say.
That's great. And that'll put us back on track so we're not overspending, because we overspent on some things.
Yeah, we're actually, we saved money on the elementaries. And so this would have eaten up all of our savings and then put us over budget. And so this actually allows us to stay under budget overall for the total project, and allows us also to ensure that we're going to have enough money to get the high school done. And, you know, I'm knocking on wood here because you just never know, but assuming that the bidding environment is as good as it was for the middle school, for the high school, you know, this board will have some decisions to make if we can come in overall under budget and deliver all the projects.
Right. This puts us back under, so that's a good thing for all you guys that worked on it hard.
Yep.
All right. Any others? Okay, be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approve the, and it says 2018, but it's the 2018 bond projects, middle school remodeling project recommendations to Graham Construction Corporation for concrete in the amount of $521,130. Lay and Hart Mason Contractors, Inc. for masonry in the amount of $670,310. Men of Steel, Inc. for metals in the amount of $278,168. Graham Construction Corporation for general trades in the amount of $555,500. Buyer Roofing Company, Inc. for roofing in the amount of $552,000. A1 Glass Company, LLC for glass and glazing in the amount of $802,221. Walker Commercial Interiors for drywall insulation in the amount of $380,600. Shock Brothers Floor Covering, Inc. for flooring in the amount of $93,050. Niles Construction Services, Inc. for painting in the amount of $56,250. Simmons Building Specialties, LLC for lockers in the amount of $8,790. Ecker Mechanical Contractors, Inc. for mechanical in the amount of $2,250,680. Nectarline Electric, Inc. for electrical in the amount of $859,910. Superior Contracting Group, LLC for site work in the amount of $631,687. And Asphalt Specialist, Inc. for paving and surfacing in the amount of $239,900 for the total cost of $7,902,196 as presented. Joanne, could you do roll call, please?
Sure. Mike,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
and Brian.
Yes.
And that is 7 yeses.
Thank you so much. Motion passes. All right, now it's time for public comments. Do we have any, Travis?
Yep, Mary's on the line.
Okay, Mary, could you state your name and please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, please?
Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Rock. I am the SCEA Teachers Union President. I tried to get in earlier. I apologize. I had a little bit of a technical issue, but I want to commend the board on making the decision, the safe decision, to continue with the virtual learning plan until January 19th. I think it's so important to protect our students, community, and staff. And our union feels very strongly that virtual learning is the best option at this time for those reasons. I know that this presents a lot of challenges for working families, and teachers take this responsibility of virtual teaching and learning very seriously. They are working very hard to meet the needs of their students, communicate with families, help support families where they are with this learning, and will continue to do that throughout this time and into January as needed. And we hope that this is a short-term fix and that we can safely return to face-to-face learning on January 19th. We do not, I think the majority of our people want to be in front of our kids, but when it is safe and we can do our jobs to the best of our ability. So I appreciate your support in this, and I look forward to working together with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate all of your work and your leadership. Anybody else, Travis?
That was it.
Okay, thank you. All right, now for comments from the board. Go ahead, Leisha.
It's actually a question, sorry. So with this new decision, with us not returning until the 19th, does that not allow any activities within our buildings, Ben, or can we make decisions on a case-by-case basis, depending, I mean, first and foremost, like if MHSAA says that we can allow competition, practice, whatever, can that transpire, or do we need to essentially keep all buildings closed?
Yeah, so our plan would be to continue with any extracurricular activities that would be allowed by the orders and by law so that we could safely participate. If you as a board would want to prohibit those activities, you'd need to expressly, state that. At this time, we don't have any of those activities going on because they're not allowed by the order. But in the event that they would be allowed by the order, so similar to the beginning of the year when we were going face-to-face, a lot of schools were fully virtual and they were still participating in extracurricular activities. So we have that ability and that would be our plan. I would also say, in addition to, those types of activities, there are going to be some isolated instances, and Mr. Bouchon and I talked today, students that have special needs, or we have some students that require some additional supports that could be brought in case-by-case basis in small group. And so that's something that we'll kind of talk through and work through with, as Mrs. Rock said, with our teachers, and finding ways to provide, some small group here and there. The vast majority is obviously going to be virtual, but there's nothing that would prohibit us from doing some small group things. We just would want to make sure that we're following all of our safety procedures that are in place.
Thank you for that. And then a second question/comment, if there is a way that we can, again, try to reach out to families to ensure, a short pause is one thing, and a family may have been able to accommodate for that short period of time to go virtual, but now we're talking quite an extended amount of time, to make sure that we reach out to our families and make sure that they've got the resources that they need in order to be virtual.
Yep.
Thanks, Alicia. Anyone else?
I have one question. Is there a website that kids are making, some of the children making videos with at the high school, Ben?
Well, certainly there are many videos that kids at the high school make. I mean, they use Snapchat as a real common one. But basically, yes, there are always times where kids have made videos. Sometimes they post them to YouTube or their other social media outlets.
Okay. Yeah, somebody was asking me about it the other day, and I didn't know of it. They said they're doing it like on a weekly basis or something, a YouTube video or something that they're posting on YouTube. I'm not familiar.
I think Chuck's referring to ITC.
Oh, yeah. So sorry about that, Chuck.
Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, thank you. That's what it was.
Yeah. So the high school has a program called ITC, which is a student-run news outlet. So the students basically put together a news show or a newscast, and then that gets broadcast out to the students so they can keep apprised of, ongoing happenings, different things with clubs, different news around the building. And so that group is also Mr. Gillette's. It's a class that they take during the day. But then they also have the opportunity to produce a news broadcast. There is what they call a TriCaster machine in there, where they can actually do they have a little green room, and they can actually make a news production. So that's a student-run program. And so sometimes they will call teachers or students, and they'll ask for. And Brendan, I don't know if you want to chime in here. I mean, you watch ITC. You probably can describe it much better than I do.
Yes. So ITC, they post on YouTube and they also post clips on Instagram from time to time. And pretty much what it is just school news. They just post things that are going on within the school and things that are going on within the community, and they post some current and social events as well. And so it's just kind of a way to keep the students updated.
Ben,
Okay.
or others, is that a, oh, go ahead, Chuck, go ahead.
No, I wanted to know about, because people were asking me about it. I went on and I didn't know if it was like sanctioned or if it was being supervised. And then Ben answered my questions with the teacher that's overseeing it. And it must be obviously that, the 12th and 11th grade kids that are in there, the children or teenagers. And I didn't know how it was run or if it was, what was going on with it. So it was more out of curiosity, Carrie.
Sure.
I'm just wondering, is that a forum that would be of value to share tips and tricks for what students have learned or teachers have learned and engaging students? I mean,
certainly they could, and I think they probably do run some of those by the kids. I mean, Mr. Gillette is the teacher for that class, but yeah, I mean, I think that they know more about a lot of this technology than most of the adults. So
I know you're doing a parent-based help desk, but I'm just wondering if that wouldn't be another avenue to share information.
Sure. I can tell you I was in a classroom this morning with some 7th graders in a math class, and none of them struggled whatsoever with any of the technology. So I think that the technology struggles on the user side are the parents and the other adults in the organization. So,
anyone else?
I was just going to comment, Carrie.
Information.
Yeah, that ITC group as well. So I followed a lot of the football around the state. They do an amazing job, and it was probably the best broadcast that I saw. Was really clear. You felt like you were right there. So they do an amazing job. To add to the technology, though, if we can have a TikTok tutorial from Mrs. Corbett, that would be nice too.
You are the master of TikTok.
I'll make one special for you, Alicia, tonight.
I don't even have it downloaded for a reason.
All right, anyone else? I want to make sure we thank our presenters tonight. They did a great job, and thank you, Michelle, for all that you do, and to all the administrators, all of our teachers, all of our staff, our bus drivers who are now doing other things they probably never signed up to do, and people are just making good use of all this time. And to our students and to our families for all you do, and welcome, RJ. We will look forward to hearing about your experience in the future. And I'm a science nerd, so I'll be very interested to know what you're doing. And thanks to all of you. I know we're having a board meeting in a couple weeks, mainly for superintendent evaluation, but I just want to make sure that we wish everybody happy holidays, and everybody stay safe. And I hope that our families will be safe over the holidays and be able to still fill their hearts, and we'll see everybody back safely in January. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mike?
Support.
Brian? Any comments or questions? All right, we're going to do this one the easy way, Joanne. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thanks to everybody. I appreciate all my fellow board members as well. Everybody on the call. Travis, you are a rock star. Thank you so much for all you do. Take care, guys.
Thanks.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.